You have now had time to sleep on the San Francisco 49ers win versus the Patriots. We are reacting to kind of how we're feeling this morning after we've had more time to digest the loss, or actually win, lost by the Patriots, and discuss all the different things about that game. Obviously, we'll go into a lot more detail than what we did after the game. So I'm excited to get into this one. You guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button, and let's get into our next day reaction. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Happy Victory Monday to you all. Shout out to all the SDS hopping in. Man, feels good to finally be back in the win column after a 2-game skid. The San Francisco 49ers get back on track against the Patriots. And one of the beauties of this, early portion of the season is that I think what you're dealing with is expectation versus reality. The expectation is that the San Francisco 49ers, Super Bowl favorites, favored in every game, were going to come out and look just like they did last year, right? Starting the season 5-0 and on their way back to the tippy top of the mountain to go and do it all again. Now, obviously, it hasn't been the same road up until this point. It's been a different level. It's been a different trajectory up until this point, but there's still a ton to take away from the first 4 weeks of the season. But not only that, I think the next 4 games are going to be the most important when identifying and discussing what the San Francisco 49ers are from a kind of higher level perspective. There are definitely things that still need to be worked on. And I don't believe this team is where they ultimately want to be and know where they can be. So that's why this first 4 weeks of the season and how that will translate into the next 4 weeks of the season, I think is most important. But when you look at this win, man, I've talked about it a couple times already, but I'm just really impressed with Brock Purdy through this season. And again, part of that comes from the loss against Minnesota, where I don't think I think that was one of his worst games of his career, to be perfectly honest with you, in how he was seeing the field and some of the reads he was making and some of the decisions he was making. It was a situation where I was like, this doesn't feel like Brock. And there was a moment in that game against Minnesota where you could see the fire light inside of him. And he started to try to will his team towards a win. Now, it was a little too late, but I remember coming on this stream telling you guys, you see that Brock right there? That to me proves that Brock is more than capable of overcoming a bad performance. And not only that, if we can get that Brock for 60 minutes wall to wall, we're going to get a different level of Brock Purdy. And so far, we've gotten 120 minutes. We've gotten 8 quarters of Brock Purdy with a straight up fire lit under him. And I think in real time, we are watching the evolution of Brock Purdy. Again, a 24-year-old quarterback heading into his second year as a full-time starter. First year without having to rehab in the offseason, coming off a severe elbow surgery. What I am most excited about is Brock from a developmental standpoint. And the Brock that I am seeing these past 2 weeks is a Brock Purdy that I don't think anyone can argue about. that I don't think anyone can try to reference stats, reference teammates, reference scheme. You're watching Brock Purdy not only execute within scheme, you're watching him push the ball downfield more than any other quarterback in the NFL. I believe, I think I saw David Lombardi put it out. Brock Purdy is tied uh, with Sam Darnold in on passing yardage on deep throws, 20 plus air yards. Brock Purdy, 292 yards. Sam Darnold, 292 yards. Who would have thought that these two dudes would be at the top of the league in regards to deep throws downfield? And again, it's not just about the deep throws. You had that beautiful dime to Debo Samuel. Again, if you want to nitpick it, could have been a little bit further out in front, but again, it's a rhythm. It's still getting the timing down, and it was still a beautiful, beautiful throw, nonetheless. But just really, really excited about what I've seen from Brock Purdy. And you guys know we break down the tape every single week on this channel. If you've been with me since Brock Purdy has entered the game since the Miami Dolphins, and you've been a part of every film breakdown that we've done, we've broken down basically every play from Brock Purdy. So we've seen it. We've strung together kind of what he's been able to do over his career, and he's still taking steps forward. He's still getting better. He's still improving. So watching Brock go out there, and again, I was down there in LA at SoFi Stadium, aka Levi South, and was there at the stadium uh, at Levi's. Brock's playing, man. He's balling. And again, I think it's an intangible thing. And again, a lot of people can't see the intangibles, or they don't take into account how important intangibles are, especially from the quarterback position. But there's this intangible quality that Brock has been playing with the last 2 weeks that is making him into the quarterback that I think everyone said he isn't. So I'm very, very excited about that. Um, you even look at his yardage. He's got like the lowest yak out of, I think, any quarterback in the league right now. So if you want to take away positives from this game and continued uh, just optimism about Brock Purdy and all of the things that he's been able to do, Brock is definitely taking strides and steps forward in front of our eyes, which is crazy because he's just coming off a season where he was potentially playing, he was playing at an MVP caliber. He was an MVP frontrunner for a good portion of that season. And I don't know, I think there's something different that he's been playing with. And I really do think that he can continue to be a driving force of this team, not just someone who's along for the ride, as everyone seems to make it about with Brock. Obviously, I think one of the biggest takeaways, too, from this game, from a positive standpoint, was the defensive line. The defensive line is banged up. Javon Hargrave is done for the year. It's a tough situation. Depth has been in question uh, throughout the beginning of the year and throughout the offseason. And the depth absolutely showed up in this game. The San Francisco 49ers defensive line absolutely feasted. And again, some people are probably already going to get on here and say, well, it's against the Patriots. Well, what happened against the Rams last week? The Rams were down multiple starters on their offensive line. What happened last week? So again, a common theme on this particular channel is when the offensive line is dinged up, we tend to highlight the defensive line, and we've noticed a trend where the defensive line hasn't taken advantage of those opportunities, and it's spanned over years now. And so this game to me was big. This game, seeing Kevin Givens 2.5 sacks, being able to see guys like Sam Okiwanu come out of nowhere after being elevated to the not elevated, promoted to the active roster in place of Javon Hargrave and instantly making an impact for his team, creating a turnover worthy play and just getting after the quarterback has been fantastic. Malik Collins with a sack and a half, and Evan Anderson with a sack himself, you know. And then, of course, Nick Bosa coming in with a strip sack to seal the game, but he was around the quarterback constantly. So this is the kind of like defensive performance that we want to see. Now, the thing is like obviously you look at Fred Warner and the play that he made, absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot of positives to take away. And my biggest thing with this thing is in really objectively looking at this performance against the Patriots isn't to be like, oh, look at the score. It's 30-13. This team's the best team in the NFL. It's perfect, all good. Nothing needs to be worked on. No, that's the best part about this. The best part about these 4 weeks is this team is being able to identify all the things that they need to work on, and there's still a lot of areas to improve, and they still put 30 on the Patriots. Should have been 50, most likely. If they played their best ball, if they executed for 60 minutes on all three phases across the board, hell, this might have been 70-point game. That's what they could have done to this Patriots team. But we still look at it. You look at the 30-13 score and you say, "Oh, that's a beatdown. That's in the NFL winning by that margin. That's hard to do. It doesn't matter what team you are." So, and the thing is, it didn't even play their best ball, and that to me is a positive sign. People look at people. I think there's multiple ways to evaluate it. I guess it could be drummed up to: are you a glass half full kind of person, or are you a glass half empty? I've been around football long enough to understand, especially in the early portion of the year, that it takes a while sometimes to gel. It takes time. Obviously, people are comparing the early start of this year to last year. They're like, oh, disjointed, terrible off season, and not saying that you're wrong, but it's also important to understand that you got to let the season breathe a little bit before we start making grandiose proclamations one way or the other. And my read on this team so far is they still have the pieces. They still have what it takes, and they just got to play their game and they got to stay healthy. That's it. And I feel like talking about this team, I feel like it's Groundhog Day when we're talking about how this team continues to improve. It's exactly that. Play your brand of ball, execute to the highest level, take care of the football, don't get hurt. If they can do that, they can absolutely they could run the table. Listen, the 49ers and I'm really focused on this 4-game stretch. Cardinals next week, Seahawks week 6 on a short week. Then you got Chiefs after a mini bye, and then Cowboys and then a bye. Those 4 weeks are going to tell me much more about this team than the first 4 weeks. 100%. So what you got to do now is you got to take the positives out of this. And I think with what we've seen from this team is, even though there are still issues to correct on all 3 phases, one of the main things that we heard out of the locker room was they were taking this game personally. They took this performance personally. I loved what Nick Bosa said. He said, if you would have went online, you would have thought the building was burning down. And again, it just shows the perspective of people outside the building against people who are inside the building. Although they can look themselves in the mirror and say, we're not performing to our best ability, that right there in of itself is an ability to improve. We're not playing like ourselves. So as a result of that, we're not executing, we're not winning, these types of things. If we play to our standard, we will win. And so that's what it is, man. There's I can't emphasize enough, there's still a lot to clean up, but the mentality is already shifted. The mentality of the team, with Fred Warner firing him up before the game starts, with the way it sounds like they're attacking this this first portion of the year, it's already kind of had to cause them to like focus up and like lock in. And that's not a bad thing for this team. So the way that I'm looking at it, arrows pointing up. I feel better even about the loss. I still got to get into the tape and break it down. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But again, when you're talking about vibes and you're talking about, that's been a big point of emphasis for this year. I think we're getting back on track. And again, it's about stacking. Everyone gets so focused on treating each individual moment, each individual game as it's a defining moment or defining game, rather than recognizing that you got to stack and you got to put together a body of work. And the body of work is going to define who you are, not individual plays, not individual moments. Although they play a massive role into it, it's the body of work that is really going to tell you the full story. D'Lo says, "Is it me or has the O faded from the play action and transitioned into empty more? Was this by design, and is Kyle Shanahan evolving his O to be more modern?" This was something that we talked about quite a bit throughout the offseason, and this was the expectation. Um, with Brock Purdy, with the trust that Kyle has in Brock Purdy to make the correct um, we were picking up on these trends, I think, last year, where it did feel like you the that Kyle felt more comfortable putting the ball in Brock's hands and allowing Brock to do what Brock does. And so I do think that the play action game has been reduced a little bit, and I do see a situation where they are going into more empty sets and really kind of spreading it out. And I think as a result of that, you're getting a situation where defenses are dropping more in coverage than usual. So we're seeing a bit of a shift in how not only the 49ers offense plays, but how the defenses play against 49ers offense. We're so used to stacked boxes with multiple tight ends and fullbacks on the field. It does feel like they're kind of getting away. Like I really haven't seen that Zorro concept that became so famous in 2021, and they really perfected. I haven't seen a lot of Zorro at all, which is effectively like an outside zone outside the tackles, with the pulling action of either fullback, tight end, wide receiver. They do it through multiple different ways of concepts, but it's effectively a you're pulling a player into an outside double, and then it's effectively kind of almost like an outside zone. It's like it's weird. It's like a combo gap scheme zone play. It's a phenomenal play, and they've had a ton of success on it, but you don't see them implementing it all that much. And so I really do think the offense is evolving. And again, this is one thing that we clued on and we highlighted throughout the offseason as an expectation, is that when you have a quarterback like Brock, a quarterback who's as cerebral as Brock, and who is clearly showing that he is talented enough as Brock, physically, mentally, and as a leader, that yeah, you can dial up more shots. You can take more chances. Like I think Kittle kind of talked about it. He was like, he questioned the play call or the touchdown that he had in the end zone. He's like, shout out to Jordan Elliott of NBC Sports Bay Area, not the other Jordan Elliott of the 49ers, who hopefully I think is going to be okay. We'll find out more about him. But we were talking after the game, and he kind of clued me into like Kittle's comments about like he had to double check with Brock that he heard the play correctly. He's like, "Wait, is this the play we're running? Because we typically call this play from 30, 40 yards out, and we're in the red zone." And he was like, "Is this really what we're running?" And Brock was like, "Yeah," and he threw it, and Kittle catches it. So I really do think that this offense has absolutely evolved, and it's crazy to think you don't have Christian McCaffrey, who is the ultimate offensive weapon. And again, I think it puts an emphasis on Brock and what Brock is doing. Um, but I do believe the offense is evolving, and I think they have to evolve. They really do. There's more teams in the NFL right now running an offshoot of Kyle Shanahan's scheme than ever before. So opposing defenses are a lot more clued into it and expecting of certain things. And so, yeah, I do think the offense is evolving, and it's evolving along with Brock. That's the thing. Kind of like what I started the show with. They're hand in hand. As Brock continues to get better, uh, he's like pushing the offense further. So I love it, man. I really do. And I felt like I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I thought that was Brandon Ayuk's best performance of the year. I get it, only 2 receptions, 48 yards, but that's not what I was looking for Brandon Ayuk. I've talked about it. As you guys know, I break down a lot of Brandon Ayuk film. He's one of my favorite players to watch on film because he balls with or without the ball in his hand. And I felt like there was this lack of energy that we have become used to with Brandon Ayuk, and rightfully so. We understand all the context behind that. And that was the thing that I wanted to see from Brandon Ayuk, and I think I got that. I can't wait to get into the tape to kind of confirm that, but I do believe um, what we saw from Brandon Ayuk was the Brandon Ayuk, right? And now if we can take that and we can turn that into production, even better, right? Even better. But that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for BA to lock in here. And I think he did. And for me, really happy about that because I know the production will come. I know he will have a day where he goes berserk and he is a multiple touchdown game. I know that day is coming. So I'm not concerned about that. What I was concerned about was how his body language and his energy was coming across on the field, and I believe we're back on track. So I expect now the production to ramp, but I'm really happy with BA's performance. I really am. It's a two reception 48-yard day. No one would say, "Oh, that's a great performance." Like, we get it. Underneath the context of the situation, I think it was pretty solid. Um, Jawan Jennings continues to be phenomenal. Led the 49ers in receiving yet again. Um, the streets are saying that the offensive line held up pretty well. Again, I can't wait to get into the tape to actually see if all these pressure numbers and everything like that bear out and hold up on film. Um, but Dominic Pooney, I think what was it like? He had like 29 pass blocking snaps, and he gave up 0 pressures on the day. And that is number 1 for the lowest pressure rates allowed by rookie offensive line in week 4. So Pony doing Pony things again. Numbers are great and all when it comes to offensive line, but nothing beats getting into the tape. So I'm excited to see what the tape bears out. But I believe it was Aaron Banks who had the most pressures with 4. I think McKivitz had 1 pressure, and then the rest of the offensive line had 0 pressures. So for the most part, offensive line held up pretty well. And they have a pretty good defensive lineman in Keon White, who's been playing pretty well. So that's a nice bounce back performance that you like to see from the whole group. And again, the tape will bear it out ultimately of what we really think of that game and what we think of that performance. That will tell the full story. But the snapshot that we've got so far, not bad. Not bad at all. Jordan Mason is about to absolutely get paid. Second in the league in rushing yards. The only reason why he's not first is because Derrick Henry has decided to go absolutely nuclear with the Ravens. And so he is only second in the NFL in rushing behind Christian McCaffrey. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, Jordan Mason has rushed for over 100 yards 3 times. Dude's balling, man. Dude's going crazy, and you love to see it because obviously, both Justin and I, and again, credit to Justin for being the one who put me on to Jordan Mason, but it was really easy to see that once you got into Jordan Mason, and especially when you saw him in his rookie training camp, the talent was apparent. And it's taken a while for him to get his opportunities, but the opportunities have come, and Jawan Jennings is balling. Absolutely balling. I got to say, probably Fred Warner is your defensive player of the year. Up until this point, I don't think how he can't be. He is doing phenomenal. So, basically, I think the biggest, if we want to like transition into a little bit of some of the concerns, I think we can talk about special teams. I do think that special teams uh, continues to be a bit of a thorn in our side, right? I think it is not something that they are incapable of correcting or incapable of improving. But again, we talked about it. I've talked about it multiple times on the show today. Is it takes all 3 phases. It's not, you can't just be offense. All right, we're good on offense. All right, we're good on defense. You need it on special teams too. And it's not just Jake Moody making field goals. It's not just, holding on to the ball. Like, they need some reliability on the special teams front. And again, I sympathize with special teams because they're using all the back end guys on the roster. And obviously, if there's injuries and changes, those guys on the back end are constantly rotating. So you're potentially putting new guys in to special teams roles. And so I don't, I would never aspire to be a special teams coach. I just never, ever would want to do that because it sounds very difficult. But it is something that I know a lot of fans have been talking about, and I know a lot of fans want to see an improvement there. So hopefully, I think it starts with getting a returner that you can rely on. So we'll see. I think what will be interesting to see is if Ricky Pearsall is that guy. Obviously, there's a good chance Ricky Pearsall is activated this week, and we get the debut of Ricky Pearsall after his insane story. But in training camp, he was used, he was being rotated in as a returner. So could the San Francisco 49ers, they've put out Garendo, they've put out Cowing, could Pearsall like fill that hole right as he returns? It would be interesting. Something's going to tell me that Kyle is going to be, again, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be chomping at the bit to get his first round draft pick wide receiver out on the field. So I could absolutely see a world that exists where Ricky Pearsall returns and he returns and immediately steps in as a returner, punt returner, kick returner. We'll see. But yeah, Juice returned to kick. Juice can do everything. What can't Juice do? Juice has been playing tight end too. What can't Juice do, man? What can't he do? Does Ronnie Bell get cut when Pearsall comes back off IR? Well, him not being active for this last game isn't a good sign for him. So I don't know if that's exactly where they'll turn. I would imagine they would look into the wide receiver room to clear up some additional, right, because they already got Jennings, Samuel, Aiyuk, but Cowing could be hurt. And obviously I have Conley. So Ronnie Bell could theoretically be the odd man out when Pearsall returns. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. I think one of the things that they're hesitant of with cutting Ronnie Bell is he will get claimed by someone who has experience with Ronnie. So could be a Ram, could be a probably like a Washington Commander potentially. Someone's going to pick up Ronnie and get him into their practice squad or something like that. So I think that's one of the hesitations that they're having. But we'll see. We'll see what we get cooking, but that is a roster move that is expected this week. I'm anticipating that Pearsall returns. So we'll see what we get. We will see what we get when that move goes down. But yeah. So anyways, the biggest things that I think the 49ers need to continue to work on, penalties. They led in penalties, 6 penalties for a total of 43 yards and things of that nature. So I would like to see the penalties cleaned up, but obviously I'm not too stressed about that this early on in the year. I think that will be something that gets corrected as they move forward. Obviously, taking care of the football. Brock did have that interception, throwing into double coverage, just based on my vantage point, just like he threw it up to give this guy a shot, but the coverage was real tight on that one. So again, just taking care of the football. That's the crazy thing. It's like I'm sitting here talking about this game where the 49ers won 30-13, and it realistically should have been probably 20 points more on the board. This could have been, I think if the 49ers were operating at their best, this probably 50-60 point game, just based on how things were going. And just the way the pressure of the defense was getting to Jacoby Brissett. Again, a little bit of a bend don't break situation there, but not bad. I think the 49ers linebacker depth behind Fred is interesting because you got D Winters, you obviously have Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Devondre Campbell. I'm not sure Campbell is playing as well as maybe we had anticipated. Again, I wasn't super locked in on him during this game, but I did see him miss a tackle or two. And it does sound like he's kind of already in a rotation now, which wasn't apparently the part of the plan when he signed with the 49ers. So it does feel like the 49ers are like, all right, let's see what we have here. So I'm curious to see, like we saw Tatum Bethune at the end of that game. So I'm curious to see what they do there. I'm curious to see if D Winters gets healthy enough, if he kind of slides in for Devondre Campbell. Um, that their linebacker depth is getting tested early. Um, and obviously you want to make sure Fred Warner's good. I do think he's good, but of course we'll we'll wait to get the final report on that one. But linebacker depth is, and we get it. They're down Dre Greenlaw, um, and stuff like that. But we'll see, man. We'll see. We'll see what Devondre Campbell continues to do, and if he can pick up his play a little bit. Um, but man, it makes your life a hell of a lot easier when your defensive line is getting pressures, is clogging running lanes. Um, Jacoby Brissett looks so uncomfortable. He looks so uncomfortable in that game against the 49ers. So the defense, the defense, I think, is going to be okay. I know a lot of people, and myself included, shared concerns over the defense, and they're not perfect yet. But that's really the theme of this year. As we get through and we close the book on the last 4 games, the theme is it truly is like I'm looking at it as more of just rounding into shape, like rounding into the team that you are going to be at the end of the year. And I think every season is different. Every season needs to be treated individually of itself. And just because this season isn't necessarily starting like it did last year doesn't mean that this team is actually cooked. Now, obviously, there there are trends that you can keep an eye on and things that you want to look out for, but it's really about stacking. And again, I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but it's how I'm viewing this team. It's how I'm viewing how they move forward, and what I'm really looking at is a group who can get the job done. They just need to do it. That's it. Easier said than done, but offense and defense can execute. They can execute. And so it's just gotta do a little bit more consistently, right? So thank you very much. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, 100%. And that can't apply any greater to the sport of football. So are there things to, be alerted of? Sure. Sure. But that doesn't mean correction can't occur and improvement can occur within a year. So I don't know. I don't know. I think we're good. We did need this one. Or we needed this one and we need the next one. We need the next two. Again, 49ers won't look ahead. I will. 49ers need the next two. It's Cardinals, Seahawks, two bird teams, mini bird gauntlet. You got to get ahead in division. You're already down 0-1 because of the Rams. You need to get after it. You need to be able to do this. Jason says, no 0-3 team has won the Super Bowl. Has any Mr. Irrelevant ever led his team to the Super Bowl? Has any Mr. Irrelevant done what Brock Purdy has done? The only I love you, Chase. The only thing I'm doing is pushing back on things like this are meant to be broken. And again, I'm not saying that the 49ers would go to the Super Bowl if they started out 0-3. But again, I'm a big fan of the outlier. So you show me an outlier and you show a trend that's never been accomplished or this, that, and the other thing. To me, I look at that as a challenge. I look at that as something like, oh, all right, well, let's see. Now, I imagine you're responding to the chat as well. I was just saying, like, I feel like there's always an opportunity to break a trend, right? And that's what Brock is doing right now. He is completely destroying the trend of being drafted at Mr. Irrelevant, right? And there's, George Kittle being a 5th round pick, Fred Warner being a 3rd round pick. You can look at a different avenues or alleys that you want, but that's why for me, I think it plays into, like, yeah, you start out 1-2, but the sky isn't falling. It's like you just got to get it together. You got the dogs, get it done, and flip it around. So I think this was a big time momentum win. Get the energy back on your side and now stack, right? Start stacking onto the next win. So that means Cardinals. And the Cardinals are playing well. So I think this will be a good test. I think this will be a really, really good test coming up. But I feel really good about the 49ers performance. All things considered, that it wasn't a perfect performance, but it was the performance, hey, we need. You can look at this, you can still identify a ton of things to improve and feel very happy that you came out of there with a commanding victory over a team that you should have demolished. So a lot to learn, and it's always nice to be able to learn from a win opposing to have to learn from a loss. So I like it. So for the rest of today, I'll be posting like normal content across all the platforms. But if I can get a film breakdown in of the offense today, I will do my best. Still waiting for the film to hit the inbox, but once it does, I'm gonna dive into it, and we'll start breaking it down. And if I can get through the whole offensive tape today within the next couple hours, I'll hopefully be able to do a film breakdown. If not, we can reset for tomorrow. But either way, we will be looking at the tape, and I'm looking forward to it. So appreciate everyone for tapping in on the Next Day Reaction Show. Let's go. Brought to you by TickPick. Shout out to TickPick. Make sure you are tapping in with them anytime you are purchasing your tickets to 49ers games or any event. And of course, use my code SF9ers for up to $25 off your ticket purchases. Got a lot more content coming on to the channel. Make sure you stay locked in. Turn post notifications on. Smash that like button. Appreciate everyone for tapping in as always. And grab your cookies on the way out. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.